Hi everyone, we're just about to start the webinar, so thanks for joining. I'll just share my screen.
Afternoon all.
Now, Alex, can you tell me you can see the screen being shared?
Yep, I can see that my end. Kevin, thank you.
Excellent. That's good. Right, okay, we'll make a start. Expecting a good number today. It is half term, so understandably some people couldn't join. But thank you very much for giving your time today. So we'll make a start. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the joint EAL and NICEIC webinar, helping you to navigate the 2026 EAS changes and your pathway to the right qualifications. We are presenting this webinar from home, so please excuse any unwanted background noise or delay in the slides. Please type any questions in the Teams chat, and we will have a Q&A section at the end. All attendees will be muted and the session will be recorded later for distribution. So please share with your colleagues. The aim of the presentation is to enable you to understand the reasons for the EAS changes, what the changes are, the impacts on contractors, and the qualifications that help meet these requirements. We'll also be touching on other updates and news. The presentation is likely to take about 35 minutes, although I haven't timed it, but leaving plenty of time to answer questions at the end. So to introduce the speakers today, you have myself, Kevin Sparrow, Senior Industry Manager for Building Services Engineering, and I'm delighted to introduce special guest speaker, Alex Robinson, Head of Training at the NICEIC. So hello, Alex, great to have you here with us today. And
yeah, thanks for sorry, Kevin. Thanks for having me along.
Please.
Yeah, really looking forward to the webinar, and really topical at the minute. So I think hopefully it will be really useful to the varied audience that we've got.
Thank you very much, Alex. Definitely. If you have any questions after the webinar, please don't hesitate to get in touch, and we will have that Q&A section. So again, welcome, Alex. I'm going to kick off by asking why these changes are occurring and what's behind them.
Yeah, no problem. If you could just take us through to the next slide, Kevin. So the Hackett review of the Grenfell tragedy highlighted a general lack of consistency in competence standards across the construction and built environment industry. Ultimately, we were consistently inconsistent, and the report identified significant safety failings in the current system, and this paved the way for sweeping changes to building and fire safety laws, including, as you see here, the building regulations. And just wanted to draw out there where it references individual competence in the form of skills, knowledge, experience, and behaviours. Or you may start to hear the terminology filtering through SCEB, skills, knowledge, experience, and behaviours. Some of the educators in the virtual room will be akin to something similar. KSBs is terminology that many of you in the room will be familiar with, and this sort of thing is being more widely reflected in legislation and regulations. And ultimately, NICEIC, we welcome the changes, and we support the report's recommendation that certification body like ourselves have a key responsibility to ensure that all certified businesses are competent to undertake the work safely, and the changes that are filtering through gives us a mechanism that allows this competence to be consistently assessed and verified by having clear benchmarks and mandatory technical competencies. If we move through to the next slide, Kevin, and we can see there reference to a document known as the EAS. We love an acronym in our sector, and this may be a new one to your vocabulary. Probably one that many of you have not possibly heard of until the recent changes that are set to be implemented and are being talked about. So just to give you a bit of background, the EAS is an industry agreed specification. It's intended for use by all certification and registration bodies that undertake assessment of businesses carrying out electrical work. So obviously NIC, EAC, but any certification body in the UK will essentially design their scheme requirements around this specification. And it's been drawn up by organisations representing the electrical industry and consumer safety interests, and it's designed to ultimately enhance safety of electrical work. Now, the organisations include competent person scheme providers, trade associations, the Building Safety Regulator, Welsh Government, ECA, Electrical Safety First, TESP, UCAS and the IET, so all key industry stakeholders. And the recent changes, which we're going to go into a little bit more detail about, ultimately stem from that wider construction and building services industry review into competence, and ultimately they're designed to ensure clearer and consistent standards across the sector. Now, if we just move on to the next slide and have a look at what some of those key changes are, I think if you click again, Kevin, that will highlight those. So we can see there some key changes that are set to be implemented in 2026. We can see some additional work categories, which we're going to look into, and some clarification around qualification requirements for those undertaking periodic inspection and testing. And we're going to look at those in a little bit more detail as we go through the presentation, but there you can see the key implementation dates of October 2026. And if we move on to the next one, Kevin, and if we click again, as we click through, we'll see here an extract from it, one of the tables which outlines the work categories within the EAS. And the ones that are highlighted in red are those additions that were referenced on the previous slide. So we can see here we've got a new specific work category for electric vehicle charging equipment installations. And you can see it's segregated there into dwellings and other than dwellings. And that may determine the qualifications that are suitable to meet the mandatory technical competencies aligned to those work categories. If we click again, we'll see a call out to the solar PV work category that's been introduced. We click again a bit further, and that will give us the call out to the electrical energy storage systems. And then finally, we see a new work category for micro wind turbine installations. So 4 new work categories that have been introduced to the EAS and are set to be implemented in October 2026. And some of you in the audience may be operating in these sectors, and as we move on, we'll go into some detail about what that means for you as a certified business.
Just unmute myself. Thank you, Alex. So I think that does lead nicely onto my question. What do these changes mean for certified businesses with a competent person scheme? Can you explain that?
Yeah, that's so if we move through this section, so there is some additional competence requirements covering periodic inspection and testing, and essentially these requirements, I suppose this is where the distinction really is from previous changes to the EAS, because ultimately as a certification body, we certify the businesses rather than individuals. However, with these sort of sweeping changes, there is specific requirements being placed on not only QSs, qualified supervisors, which will be terminology some of you will be familiar with, but also employed persons within those certified businesses that are undertaking specific activities. So that term, probably important to clarify at this point, employed persons includes directly employed, subcontractors, agency. So it's a real kind of catch-all for anyone that is performing this activity on behalf of a certified business would be defined as an employed persons. So the key change, if we move through the slide, is they have to have at least 2 years evidence of undertaking periodic inspection and testing, and hold a level 3 qualification that includes in periodic inspection and testing, and evidence of ongoing CPD. So there's a little note there that this requirement does not preclude trainees and apprentices from undertaking periodic inspection and testing under close supervision from someone that meets those requirements, because ultimately it's a little bit chicken before egg. Unless you can do the doing, you're not going to be able to demonstrate that evidence of undertaking periodic inspection and testing. So there is provision there for people to build that experience under close supervision of a competent person. So just to really kind of clarify this, anyone that is carrying out periodic inspection and testing or supervising that activity on behalf of a certified business will need to meet these requirements. Okay. If you are not responsible for undertaking that activity or supervising it, then this change wouldn't be relevant to those individuals. And that logic is really kind of applied to the competence requirements for the new work categories as well. So if we take a look here, again, those mandatory technical competence requirements will apply for all qualified supervisors and employed persons undertaking the below scopes of work will need to hold a recognised level 3 qualification covering the technology. So that's EV, solar and storage. So again, just to sum this slide up, if a certified business scope of work includes EV, solar or storage, then any employed person responsible for undertaking that work and anyone responsible for supervising that work will need to hold a recognised level 3 qualification, and we'll look at those in a little bit more detail shortly.
So Alex, thanks for that. What about if a contractor doesn't undertake any of that type of work? What's the situation then?
I suppose that's the crux of it, really. There's 4 killer questions as a certified business that you need to ask yourself. So question 1, does your business undertake EICRs under your certification with NICEIC or other certification body? If the answer is yes, then you will need to ensure that any employed person responsible for conducting that work on behalf of the business holds an acceptable qualification, and the QSs responsible for supervising them also hold that qualification as well. Okay. If the answer is no, then as far as you're concerned, it's business as usual. And then we can ask that same question for the other work categories. So does your business undertake EV charging installations? If the answer is yes, again, those responsible, and that may not be all operatives within the business. There may be a discrete number of employees who actually perform this function, and they're the ones that will need to hold this qualification. It won't be the business at large if you employ multiple people which aren't actually responsible for the installation of EV chargers, for instance. It's just those that are responsible for installing and responsible for supervising that installation. And I know, in many instances, we know in the sector, a lot of people are sort of small to medium enterprises, and you are all of the above. You are marketing, you are HR, you are the supervisor, you are the doer. And in that instance, you obviously will need to hold that relevant qualification for the work you're undertaking. And we roll that logic down for solar PV and electrical energy storage systems. If the answer is no to all of those questions, then as far as these recent changes are concerned, there's no further action required on your part or your business's part. So you can continue as you have been doing for the preceding years.
Right. Okay, thanks, Alex.
So
I
think
guess it leads on to your question.
Yeah, that leads on to my question. So we've talked about there being acceptable entry qualifications for these acceptable qualifications that are going to meet these mandatory technical competencies. So we're sort of looking at periodic inspection and testing, EV, solar, and storage. So if you could just take us through what it looks like for people to gain access to those.
Thanks, Alex. That's really insightful. And yeah, so I'm just going to run through the entry requirements for the Electrician Plus qualifications. So as Alex said, this is the solar PV, electrical energy storage systems, and EV charging point installation awards. They are quite rigorous and have been set by the Electrotechnical Skills Partnership, or TESP. The reason for this is to ensure industry standards are upheld and there is a safe, skilled transition to net zero. The entry requirements are listed as shown in the extract from the qualification specification, but in summary, they require a completed apprenticeship or an experienced worker assessment or a current ECS gold card as an installation or domestic electrician. Learners will also need the relevant AM test from NET. It is important to note that insufficient qualifications for Electrician Plus are standalone vocationally related qualifications, sometimes referred to as technical certificates, as they, as many of you will be aware, are delivered in a college setting only. So, for example, our competitor Sitting Girls 2330, 2365, 8202, and our own EAL 9331 Level 3 diploma. Also, a standalone CPD award where they are the only qualification held, such as wiring regulations or initial verification awards, would be insufficient. I've included a QR code there linking to the IT website where you can review the EAS qualifications guide, which also lists all historic equivalent qualifications. We do work quite closely with them on this guide and we do update it. There's always a new qualification that comes out the woodwork. All training providers must comply with these learner entry requirements. So I'll pose the question to myself. So what if a learner contractor doesn't meet these requirements? Well, we'll start to look at some of the routes. So we work very closely with TESP in creating recommended qualification routes for typical learners. So whether you're an existing QS or contractor, a school leaver, an adult learner, or an aspiring apprentice, all these routes are included. We're also creating an EAL careers map to illustrate these routes also. We're just updating these routes for a technical occupational entry qualification, which I'll talk about on a following slide. So have a look at the Test Careers website, and there's a link there on the slide, and we'll circulate these after the webinar. So I know many of you from colleges, training providers will be familiar with these routes, so I'll just give them a whistle-stop tour, and we'll be happy to take any questions around these afterwards. So first off, apprenticeships, these are the industry's preferred route to becoming a qualified electrician. But obviously, this isn't suitable for everyone for a variety of reasons. The advantages are that these are funded for learners at any age, and relevant qualifications in this route are the Level 3 Electrotechnical qualification in England and Northern Ireland, the Level 3 Electrotechnical in Dwellings, which is in England only. And if you're in Wales, you'll undertake the Building Services Engineering Level 3 Electrotechnical installation. There will be additional requirements for the apprenticeship framework or standard you're undertaking, including the AIM2S test, which is the industry competence test delivered by NET. Any learners on the call, if you're currently seeking an apprenticeship, I've also included a link to the Find an Apprenticeship service. So this is in England only, but there'll be similar services in other nations and other routes to find an apprenticeship, including contact your local training provider, who I'm sure will be able to help. For those of you looking to enter the industry but have not yet secured an apprenticeship, there are a range of diplomas available. For the ones in green, learners typically undertake one of the level 2 diplomas before progressing onto a level 3. We also have launched this academic year a direct entry diploma for adults, which is eligible for DFE funding in England. This is the technical occupational entry for electrical installation and maintenance. So that's the one in grey text there on the slide. We're also in partnership with an awarding body called EDUCAS, delivering the Generation 2 BSET level, which is now operational. So that's the one in orange text there. So there's a range of options available for new starters. If you become employed in the industry after your course, you can transfer to an apprenticeship, and your previous learning can be recognised, which can help reduce the time to complete the training on the apprenticeship. So there's a lot of information there, all these, I could talk quite a long time about these diplomas. So if you want to find out more about these, please don't hesitate to get in touch. I'm going to talk quickly now about our Level 3 Technical Occupational Entry in Electrical Installation and Maintenance diploma. This was created as part of the reform of technical education in England and is a high quality DFE funded qualification developed with employers and is approved by Skills England. So its purpose is to serve as an occupational entry route for adults who want to work in the electrical sector but don't yet have access to work. It mirrors the knowledge and understanding of craft skills from the apprenticeship qualification. Its key advantage is that it's a standalone direct entry at level 3, so learners will not need a level 2 before embarking on this qualification. It's got 440 guided learning hours attributed to it. I have indicated the qualification structure on the right-hand side. It covers, as you would expect, health and safety, planning and overseeing, electrical design, inspection and testing, fault finding, electrical science and principles, and the industry recognised wiring regulations unit. And there is a QR link to the qualifications page as well on the website if you want to find out more about it. For adult learners, this is the next route, who have access to work to generate occupational evidence. They have been typically undertaking the NVQ diploma, sometimes known as the 1605, which has been available for around 15 years. This is a legacy apprenticeship qualification that will close for registration on the 31st of October 2026. However, we will be adding a non-apprenticeship pathway to the Level 3 Electrotechnical qualification and the Level 3 Electrotechnical in Dwellings. specifically for non-apprentice self-funded learners. So this will be a new replaced a Mark II for these adults in the workplace. So this then means both apprentices and non-apprentices will all be undertaking the same qualification in England. We will start to look at how that looks for learners in Wales as well, and centres in Northern Ireland. So this provides advantages as there's parity across industry routes, and it makes planning and delivery for different cohorts far easier at training providers and colleges. We're also finalising an updated assessment strategy for these two qualifications, and we'll publish all details shortly. I've included a QR code with a link to the news story, which provides further information around that. Okay, I should have scrolled there. Yeah, just to highlight, it's easier for learners and ex-apprentices. Sometimes a company becomes insolvent, an apprentice left in the lurch, they may wish to self-fund themselves. So therefore it does provide them easy RPL into these self-funded pathways as well. Okay, so finally, the last couple of slides from me are just to highlight the industry routes for professionals with substantial industry experience. There are two experienced worker routes for electricians. These are the installation and maintenance electrician EWA and domestic electrician EWA. These meet the criteria for an ECS Gold Card application and are recognised by the EAS as equivalent to the industry apprenticeship and meet the prerequisites for Electrician Plus aligned qualifications. So to succeed, learners must have the necessary breadth of experience gained over time in real working environments. They utilise the performance units from the apprenticeship qualification and incorporate CPD awards for wiring regulations and inspection and testing. I've linked to the units from the slide so you can download the specifications and all the information, and a link to the test website, which provides all the information on these industry routes. And I like that, Alex. A nice picture of yourself there on the gold card. Very good. So just to run through the entry requirements for these, for the domestic electrician EWA, learners will need at least 3 years experience working as a domestic electrician, excluding any time spent or training. For the installation electrician EWA, it's a minimum of 5 years experience working as an installation electrician, again, excluding any time in training. So if you're an electrician looking to progress and meet the work categories, please reach out to EAS and EAS website as well, which gives more information about all of these. Another important aspect is applicants will also need a prerequisite level 2 electrical installation qualification as outlined on the TESP skill scan. Learners without this may be eligible for the EAL electrical underpinning knowledge and understanding test, level 3 equivalent. There is a test for the chosen electrical EWA route. It is an open book exam and also incorporates electrical design science principles. I'll put a QR code and link to the website if you want to find out more about that, and a link there. So that's something we bespoke created with the Electrotechnical Skills Partnership. And finally, I just wanted to highlight some of the AM2 gateway requirements, as there may be learners out there with current or more historic industry routes. Some of these are listed here. These can be viewed on the NET website, so I've linked that there. So this provides even further options to those who've come through over the decades. So again, if you're an electrician looking to progress and meet the new work categories, check the ECS website, EAS information before booking. And if you're a member of a certification body, please reach out to them also. And us at EAL, we're always on hand to support. So thank you for listening to my whistle stop tour. Each one of these actually could be a webinar in their own right. But I'm going to hand back to Alex to run through available support options from the NIC. So over to you, Alex.
Thanks, Kevin. And yeah, just to your point earlier, I always try and shoehorn a picture of my gold card into any webinar just to prove I am a genuine bona fide electrician. So in terms of support available, we do have a dedicated webpage which talks about all of the EAS changes and what that means for your business. And also on there is some really useful links to documents which will essentially extract the key information from the EAS qualifications guide of the acceptable qualifications. So there will be current iterations, but there'll also be some historical qualifications on there that do meet the requirements as well. We've got a dedicated telephone number and email address, and my colleagues and myself, we've also hosted some episodes of our own webinar series, The Wire. So just before Christmas, I think around November time, our head of assessment and technical director delivered a webinar on the changes, really getting into the weeds of the changes themselves. And that webinar was an hour on its own, so you can appreciate it has been a very sort of high level whistle stop tour in this one. And then just the end of last month, myself, our head of assessment again, Dan Smith, and our technical director, Paul Collins, we again did a session focusing in on qualification requirements, both for core competence and also these additional CPD awards to meet those requirements. So yeah, lots of information out there to support you and certified businesses. If we go on to the next one. Just worth noting as well, if there is any JIB member businesses in the audience or any training providers that work with member businesses, JIB does have its skills development funds, which you can see there is financial support for training in the electrical industry. That can cover up to 75% of course fees, and it can support both member companies and potentially redundant or unemployed operatives working in the sector. You can see there the list of people who qualify. Obviously, on the registered apprentices, they wouldn't meet the entry requirements for some of the qualifications that we've talked about, so they wouldn't be eligible for those bits. But in terms of the topic and the qualifications really relevant to what we're talking about today, EV charging, solar, energy storage can all be covered using this fund. And also for those operatives that maybe aren't meeting those entry requirements and they've got that additional step of needing the experienced worker assessment, again, there's potential to utilise this funding to support with some of that cost burden there. Just not so much relevant for today's topic, but obviously taking advantage of there being a lot of training providers in the room, we have recently launched our new jobs board, Connected Futures, which is essentially designed to allow access to apprenticeships, which we know are working to the industry standards. It's a free-to-use platform, and essentially it will allow those looking to get into the industry to be connected with certified businesses that are looking to take on an apprentice. Free to use for both the applicants and the certified business. And a lot of you will know it's it's quite an informal sector that we work with when it comes to recruitment and employment. So it gives a mechanism which is user-friendly, easy to use, accessible for all involved. And there's also, you can see just on the picture there, there's also some blogs and useful hints and tips, both for the job seekers, but also for those looking to maybe take on an apprentice for the first time and they're not sure exactly what that looks like. And you know that advice and guidance is industry specific, rather it being that sort of generic hints and tips when it comes to recruitment or job seeking. And just worth noting, though, but because of GDPR, it's only available for those 18 or over that want to enrol and apply for an apprenticeship. But I suppose that's timely for some of your learners that are completing their T level, 18, that have completed a level 2, level 3 diploma, and they're looking to make that transition into industry. It gives them another tool at their disposal to hopefully help to facilitate that. And just staying on the topic of apprentices, learners, and things that are going on to potentially bolster their chance to get an apprenticeship or boost their CV to help them thrive within the sector if they're already working as an apprentice. Registrations open for Skill Electric at the beginning of March, so we're very close to that opening. NICEIC, EIC and EAL are both proud sponsors of the competition. So please do, if you are an employer, you can enter your own rising stars within your business. You don't need to rely on your training provider to do that. Or if you're a training provider and you want to showcase the sort of sector leading training that you're giving to your learners, then it's a great opportunity to do that. And it generally adds value to everyone involved, from the candidate themselves, the employer and the training provider. And we can see there a couple of our previous winners, Charlie Moore, who won in 2024, and our first female winner from 2025, Alice Stevenson. And we have got some case studies on the NICEIC website of these two people, which may be worthwhile having a read or sharing with some of your trainees that may be considering if it's a good option for them to get into.
Thank you, Alex. Yeah, totally recommend any employers or colleges to definitely get involved with Skill Electric. Fantastic competition. I was also going to mention we've been working with MEDA in Wales, so where the experienced worker assessments should be showing eligible for funding within Wales as well. So hopefully that'll be useful for any colleges there listening to the webinar today. So I just want to highlight in this slide, we're launching our Replacement Wine Regulations Award on April the 15th. And we'll be hosting a webinar with the IET on the 16th of April to explain the changes with Mark Coles from the IET. So we'll be giving a rundown on updates and Amendment 4, and also communicating about our Amendment 4 replacement qualification. We'll also be communicating our final plans for the non-apprenticeship pathways and on the industry apprenticeship qualifications over the coming weeks. And finally, we're excited to announce another new CPD award for the design, installation and commissioning of electronic security systems, launching in about 2 months tops. Which is an excellent CPD award for electricians and also relevant to those working in the security industry. We're just getting this recognised by ECS for the FES card at the moment. So there's a QR code there which will take you through to enable you to register for that IET EAL webinar on April the 16th. So thank you very much for listening. We hope the information has been useful. If you have any questions or feedback, please use the question and the chat function. And we may pause for just a few moments while we bring up your typed questions. Now, I've just got to communicate to my colleague Ellie on the call. I can't actually see the questions, so you may have to uh, read the questions for us, Emmy, if you
If
please.
if you go into the chat function, we've got a few questions in the chat rather than the Q&A.
Okay, bear with. I'll chat. Okay, thank you, Emmy.
I've answered a couple in the chat.
Okay.
I can just see Bill's there. So the definition of time spent in training for the EWA qualification.
Yep, should we
He's
read
got a
those out?
query.
And yeah.
Yeah. So he's got a query around what is your definition of time spent in training for the EWA qualification.
So I think I think time spent in training. So this is relating to EWA in relation to having, for example, 3 years industry professional level experience for the domestic EWA to a minimum to embark on that, or 5 years for the installation and maintenance. Generally, when those requirements were set, the expectation was that someone had done a technical certificate at college, they'd gone out into the industry and almost learned on the job, experiential learning, working with professional electricians, and then themselves worked for a number of years, several years. But I think what we did find, and is that in some instances you'll have learners that may have had 10 years working in industry, but they then do a level two almost in parallel. So I think in that instance, Bill, is I think that yes, this has come up before, and I think that is an exception. So I think with any exceptions with those, I would advise email TESP, and then we can look at those individually and give advice and guidance. But the main thrust of it is that in most cases, learners, experienced workers would hold at least a level two, or they've spent a decade or several years, in the field, working as an electrician. So hopefully that answers your query, Bill, and I'm happy to pick up with you afterwards. So let's have a look. Any more questions there? Let's have a look.
I can pick up the one from Scott, so I can see. Thanks for your question, Scott. So as a director and QS of an approved contractor with NICEIC, if the required qualifications is achieved by myself, can I supervise and sign off the works if they are also carried out by employees without the qualifications? So just to sort of reiterate the earlier points, if an employee, and that's directly employed, subcontracted, agency, if someone is employed by a certified business to carry out EICRs, install EV, solar or storage, they too will need to hold the relevant qualification in that technology for the low carbon skills, or that skill in terms of conducting periodic inspection and tests. So as supervisor, you'd need to hold that, but then the employees doing the doing would also need to have those qualifications as well.
Wonderful. How about this one, Alex, from Chris? I can read it out. For clarity on timescales, existing competent person scheme members whose qualified supervisors must undertake additional training to meet new MTCs. What transition period will they be allowed?
Okay, so we're kind of in that transition period now. So bear with a sec, because I've got I'm not from assessments, but I've got the assessment in front of me in terms of what that will look like.
So I'll read the second part as you're looking that up. It says, I understand certification bodies have 2 UCAS assessment cycles to implement the changes. So how is this timescale intended to cascade to registered businesses? Okay, so it's a good question. I guess if it takes a little bit, as you say, Alex, you're not from the assessment team, but if you can't find it at your fingertips now, we can always come back to that and get an answer.
Yeah, so it will be in terms of to sum it up, at the point of your next observation, if you have operatives that aren't meeting those mandatory technical competency requirements, then it will be flagged as a point of observation, and then there will be an action to remedy that in advance of your next visit. And I suppose just to give people some comfort, obviously there may be people within that organisation that actually aren't meeting those entry requirements, and they do need to go down that experienced worker assessment route in order to actually gain access to the qualifications that they need to meet the mandatory technical competencies, and we can absolutely work with you on that with those timelines, as long as there's that clear audit and evidence trail that you're on the train, you've bought the ticket to the destination. It's just you've got to sort of switch trains in Crewe to continue that analogy. There's this extra step at the front end you need to do to get you to the destination that you need to be at. So we can absolutely work with that.
Excellent. Thanks, Alex. And hi, Terry. Another question from Terry and Dave Austin. The EAS only applies to certified businesses. So does this mean there are some organizations that can continue to install /EICR without having additional qualifications? If you know the answer to that one.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, the EAS is a specification that applies to certification bodies and the enterprises that operate within that. So it can only be applied to those certified businesses.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so there could be instances
so there's no change.
outside.
There's no change from that perspective.
Okay, he's quite specific. Yeah, that might be something might want to look at separately. But that's a really good point.
Yeah, and I suppose ultimately there will be businesses that subcontract to other organisations that are certified, and if they're operating in a subcontractor model or agency or they're self-employed and they're performing these activities for a certified business, then they will be required to meet these same standards under that sort of umbrella of employed persons.
Excellent. Okay, so I think the questions are coming to an end. The ones I can see. Is there any more, Emmy?
In the Q&A, if you open that bit, we've got one from Warren Fisher in there.
Oh, hi, Warren. I can't read the Q&A. I can't see it, Emmy. So could you possibly read it out?
Yeah, so it says, what evidence is expected for the 2 years experience requirements for the EICRs? How do people document, prove they are having or had that experience under supervision? I believe time in a final year of an apprenticeship can also be included, but again, what evidence is needed?
Yeah, So I will take that one. So yeah, that can be evident. That could be written communication from your current or past employer that confirms you've shadowed as an employed person carrying out EICRs, and you've shadowed someone that holds that acceptable and relevant qualification. So that can be a key one, or that could be a former or current, QS that you're working with. So I suppose that's the key one, kind of, which would provide that.
Thank you, Alex. So yeah, that's brilliant. So just another question here. I'm going back to, I think that's dropped in the chat. Thank you, Terry. So another question here. Could you provide an acceptable template for employers to use for declaration of employment, a standardized document for industry? If I understand correctly, is this relating to what Alex's last point? I don't know if you can interpret that, Alex, or Terry, you could just, yes, it is. Okay.
Yeah. I suppose a standardized document for the industry, that wouldn't really be within our remit, because we don't, as an organisation, it's certainly something we can consider for our own certified businesses, but it's not something that we'd roll out as an organisation to the industry at large. But certainly something to consider. We do have a similar thing for CPD documentation. So when we talk about the requirement for CPD, we do have a standardized document on our website. We've got a section called the CPD Hub, and within that section we have a template that people can use to document that CPD. So similar concept to that.
Okay. And Terry's gone on to ask, can we generate our own in the meantime?
Yeah, absolutely. There's no specific requirement to how that needs to be presented.
I like this. It's very innovative. The ideas are flowing.
Yeah.
And Bill, thank you, Bill. Could a template be added to the qualification for use? Absolutely. Yeah, I think this is really good. So you've seen a need for something. We could create something if it's indeed helpful. We are here to try and serve and help. So I'll make a note of that after the call. Another question from Warren. If a simple witness testimony is enough to satisfy 2 years experience, may undermine the requirements. Any thoughts on that, Alex?
I suppose 2 years is just one aspect, isn't it? It's the 2 years experience. It's the relevant qualification, which obviously you've kind of proved yourself at that assessment level, and it's evidence of ongoing CPD, and that is going to be reviewed sort of year on year as well. So I wouldn't see it as undermining. It's one element of a wider kind of demonstration piece.
Lovely. Thanks, Alex. I think there's just an observation there from Alan, but what we're going to do is we're going to close the Q&A section now. If there is any follow-up questions, please do get in touch. We will get back to you. We do value your comments. You may think of something after the call. So we're just going to move on to the last stages of the webinar today. So I just wanted to quickly say, if you're interested in learning more about our qualifications or becoming an EAL centre, please visit the link on the slide or get in touch with our customer experience team. You can also contact me via that email address as well. just a bit about EAL. Its origins go back to the mid-1960s. We are owned by a sector charity called Ingenuity, and all our profits are reinvested into our sectors. So have a look at our website if you want to find out more details. And finally, for employers or colleges on the call today, you can join our Qualification Development Advisory Group, or QDAG, to provide input on our qualification content and assessment. We're really interested in working with employers and stakeholders across the BSc spectrum. So there's a link there, and hopefully you'll register and get involved. So this now brings our webinar to a close. Thanks for listening today. Special thanks to Alex and the NIC EIC for the updates today. We hope you found it useful. So please get in touch if you have any further questions, and we will circulate the webinar and the slides after the call. And so please do get in touch, and we will get back on the templates and the other items. So yeah, wishing you all a good week and hope to see you all again soon. So thank you and goodbye.
Thanks, guys.